So, Rick, let me interrupt just to ask the question because I, I speak to a lot of finance oriented individuals coming from in a big company world that just never quite make the transition into this startup land. It's kind of a wild west.
It is.
We'll get cash flows when it's just so different. What was it about the impressions you had from those 250 plus businesses over the years that made you so willing to kind of cross that chasm, so to speak?
It really stems from the fact that I had to not only know in terms of having the data about what we were doing, but how and why we were doing in terms of performance. So I started to see the returns. I started to see the companies go out of business. I started seeing trends that I started capturing. Did we do a follow-on round? Was the entrepreneur experience their first time? What industries that we're in and verticals? So many things I started wanting to know more about these companies. And I started building a database of knowledge that caused us to start seeing not only the performance, but the whys and the hows. And that was the most enlightening type of process built over the time span of about 2 years or so. I'll put it in the 2012, 13, and 14 horizon that finally caused us to see, oh, wait a minute. We're seeing these industries be more successful. We're seeing these type of follow-on rounds be more successful. We're seeing this type of analysis of a company versus that no analysis of a company yield better results. Many, many metrics started to, quote, bear out in terms of likelihoods of success that we were able to build a understanding over time of what it took and what it took to be a successful angel investor. But this did not come immediately. Like I said, it took 3 or 4 years of data starting to look at that time, that was a portfolio of 100 companies. Now it's 230 companies and many more companies that we've passed on that we track data on.
So it seems like you had this like slow realization that you could apply the same techniques and concepts from decades of work in the angel network space. And at the time, back in the 2010s, there were a couple others that were starting to think in this direction, but this wasn't really commonplace in large part because angel investing as an organized function is so new.
It is. So you are hitting a home run when you say that. I certainly didn't see it with the groups I was affiliated with, primarily in Texas, and only my involvement in the Angel Capital Association, of which CTAN was a member, and my attendance at these kinds of summit events allowed me to meet and see other angel investors that were having successes. And so the knowledge being gained from other groups and my participation in this work, that was another level step up in terms of knowledge, created the opportunity for me to either A, affirm what we were doing was appropriate and correct, or B, learn and add additional things that we could put into our knowledge base that would enhance our opportunities for success. And I had both of those kinds of awakenings happen as a result of this kind of involvement. Well, now I can tell you the 10 most data-centric angel groups in the country, and there are easily 10 of them. But I can also tell you that even today, 2/3 of the angel organizations in North America are what I call supper clubs.
Articulate the definition of a supper club.
A supper club is individuals who join an angel group. They go to a dinner meeting once a month, every other month, every other 6 weeks or so. They have 4 or 5 entrepreneurs pitch to them. They get together, have a little coffee or talk after the meeting and say, I'm going to write a check. And they do. Do they track any performance metrics? Do they track any metrics that help to determine what they are investing in? No. Do they do due diligence? No. Do they do further work in terms of involvement post-investment? No. That happens with 65% of the angel groups in North America that are in that stage today. So there's a tremendous amount of education and awareness that still needs to come to this asset class.
As you may have noticed, we are recording this conversation live from the Angel Capital Association Annual Summit. Now, if you're not familiar with the ACA, this is the world's largest professional organization specifically designed for angel investors. So if you're serious about this ecosystem or just generally interested in learning more, the ACA's education, resources, and community are definitely worth checking out. You can go to angelcapitalassociation.org. And I gotta say, this is our second year live recording in the room, and I had an absolute blast. Cannot wait to come back for future years, and I hope to see you there. A quick note before we continue the conversation. Alongside the Diligent Observer podcast and newsletter, I also run an outsourced operations service specifically built to serve angel networks. My team handles things like initial screening, social media, newsletter prep, platform management, and a whole lot more. The kinds of things that either aren't getting done or shouldn't be done by busy community leaders. If that sounds interesting to you, send me a note. Now, back to it.
I couldn't agree more. It's interesting because one of the questions we get asked often in our work, working with angel groups, is why is that important to track, all of this behind? That's not as important. We need to find great companies and run this event, and that the urgent becomes far more important than the importance.
That's correct.
And I see that all over the place. It's difficult to articulate. No, long-term benefit. This is going to help you get the right companies in the room.
And Andrew, I have talked to many, many angel groups over the years to get them along this journey. Now, I know resources and time is an issue with many angel groups. Many angel groups, the smaller ones, 75 or less members, don't even have a full-time executive director. Mm-hmm. They don't have the time in many of their members to do the kind of work that needs to be done. But if they look at it a little differently about trying to create a process to be a little more aware of doing due diligence, or being aware of vetting companies, or doing some work post-investment, that kind of stuff, you can spend some hours doing that kind of work and be better at it. It doesn't have to be 100 hours a month. It could be something less than that. And we've built tools and process ideas, that will allow angel groups to do that kind of activity. But you have to have the willingness and to some extent the passion to want to do that kind of activity, to devote time to it. You can't just come to a meeting once a month, have a glass of wine and a nice dinner, and decide to write a check and think you're doing a good job. You're doing a disservice, oftentimes just as much to the entrepreneur as you're doing to yourself. And getting angels and angel groups to understand that is a lot of work, unfortunately.
Thanks for listening to this episode of The Diligent Observer. I'm your host, Andrew, and if you're an angel investor looking for essential angel intel in 5 minutes every week, I think you'd enjoy my newsletter. I send my best stuff, interesting deals, and more straight to your inbox so you never miss a thing. Subscribe today at thediligentobserver.com.